was the the beginning of college football, schedule preview and point spread prediction videos. So I'll be starting with the Oklahoma Sooners. So did these last year and went through all of the Power Four teams. I probably won't get through all of them this year, but I'll try to do most of them. And these aren't my actual prediction videos. These are just me telling about what I think the spread will be, going by what I know now about each team and how each team was last year. So Oklahoma will again play one of the toughest schedules in the country, but I would give them at least a chance in every game. Their schedule in the conference is exactly the same because all of the SEC teams are playing the same conference opponents as they did last year. But Oklahoma's schedule this year will be even tougher because they have a non-conference game against Michigan. So good news for them is they get three games in the non-conference that should all be easy wins against Illinois State, Temple, and Kent State. And it's nice that they get the Temple game on the road because even though it doesn't really make sense why Oklahoma would play Temple on the road, that means they get another conference game at home. And the Temple game they're likely going to win no matter where it's played. And it's nice that they get to start the season with Illinois State because that's probably going to be their easiest game of the season because they're an FCS team. And with the big game in the non-conference coming up after that against Michigan, they'll need a warm up. And the Michigan game will be one of the biggest non-conference games of this coming season. Good news for Oklahoma is it's at home, and Michigan, it's a really tough place to play, but so is Oklahoma. So Oklahoma and Michigan were similar last year in that they both had very disappointing seasons. I know Michigan finished the season much better than Oklahoma did, but Michigan I think had just as disappointing of a season as Oklahoma did because they were coming off of a national championship win. And Oklahoma and Michigan last year were both like Iowa of 2023. They both had good defenses, but they were probably the two worst offenses in the Power Four. They were like non-existent, and it seems to me like it would be crazy to not think that Oklahoma and Michigan would be at least a little bit improved offensively from what they were last year, as bad as they both were last year. The question will be how much improved are they? And both teams that I think are going to have good defenses again. So I think that whoever makes the most improvement offensively will probably win this game. And it's a nice way for Oklahoma to begin their conference schedule because they start against Auburn at home, and Auburn, I think, may be the worst team they play in the conference this year. I don't think they're going to be very good, and Auburn, is usually much easier to play at home than they are on the road. And because Auburn is bringing in a quarterback that, if you're an Oklahoma fan, you're very familiar with in a bad way, is why I don't think Auburn is going to be very good. And Oklahoma's first bye week comes at an unusual time. They used to always take it before the rivalry game with Texas, but this time they're taking it before the game against Kent State, which is not a very good time for a bye week because they're going to win that game anyway. And the Texas game, of course, will be played in Dallas, Texas, like it always is. But I would lean Texas right now in that game, but I would give Oklahoma at least a little bit of a chance because, except for last year in 2022, as long as I can remember, the Red River rivalry has been decided by one score. And you've got to remember that in 2024, Oklahoma did not have a real quarterback. They were playing that Michael Hawkins against Texas, who was even more terrible than Jackson Arnold was. And then in 2022, when they lost 49-0 to Texas, Dylan Gabriel, even though he was on the team, he was out that game with an injury. And Oklahoma this year will have a real quarterback, so I expect that to be a close game this year. And the four in a row between Texas uh, at South Carolina, Ole Miss, and on the road at Tennessee will probably be one of the toughest four in a rows of anybody this coming season, because they're all probably going to be pretty good teams. And South Carolina is a tough place to play, no matter how good they are. And Ole Miss, I don't know how the record will be, if it'll be a game worse or the same or even a game better, but Ole Miss's roster is not going to be as good as it was this past season, I don't think. And their second bye week, though, comes at a perfect time in between the road games against Tennessee and Alabama, two teams that are expected to be good and two of the toughest places to play in the country. So Alabama, even though they got blown out by Oklahoma last year, and as disappointing as they were, they're still one of the most talented teams in the country. And they still didn't lose in Tuscaloosa last year, and they've only lost in Tuscaloosa three times, I think, in the last decade. And then their last two games against Missouri and LSU. Missouri, I think, will probably be the second worst team in the conference that Oklahoma plays this coming season. I give them a very good chance in that one, but the LSU game is going to be really tough. LSU, I think, is going to be a pretty good team, and it is really good news though for Oklahoma that they get that one at home. It should be a big help to them. So with the point spread prediction, games in the green will be games where I think Oklahoma is favored to win by a blowout, 20 or more points. And games in the red would be games where I think the team will be an underdog by a blowout, 20 or more points. And games in the blue are games where I think the team will be favored to win by double digits, 10 to 19 points. And games in the orange will be games where I think the team will be an underdog by double digits, 10 to 19 points. Games in the purple will be games where I think that Oklahoma will be favored by about a touchdown, 6 to 9 points. And games in the yellow will be games where I think they'll be an underdog by 6 to 9 points. And games in the pink will be games where I think Oklahoma will be favored by about a field goal, 1 to 5 points. And games in the gray are games where I think they'll be an underdog by 1 to 5 points. And games in the black or the toss-up games, games where at least right now I don't think that they'll be a clear favorite. So here is my point spread prediction. So Illinois State, Oklahoma should be favored to win that one by like 40 points. And Temple and Kent State, they should be favored to win both of those by around 30 points. And Auburn, with it being a home game for Oklahoma, I think that just enough to put it in the purple. I think Oklahoma will be about a 6 point favorite. And Ole Miss, Michigan, and LSU, those games are in the black because they're home games for Oklahoma. But I highly doubt Oklahoma will be favored in any of those games, and I wouldn't be surprised if they're a small underdog in all three of those. And I'm pretty sure they would be a small underdog if they were road games or even played on a neutral field. And Missouri, because it's a home game for Oklahoma, that was just enough for me to put it in the tank. I think they'll be favored by 2 or 3 points, but it'd probably be the other way around if it was a road game. And then Texas, because it's an unpredictable rivalry game. I think the spread will be close, but I think Texas will be about a 5 point favorite. And South Carolina, because it's a road game, I think they'll be favored by 3 or 4 points. And Tennessee and Alabama, I put those in the yellow because they're road games. I think they'll both be favored by about 7 points. And that will be it with this video. Please subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll be back soon.